I took it more seriously. I had written little things before. No!
I have orders to work there. I'm speaking of particular situations.
American boys has been shed in defense of your freedom.
But men don't change. Bhumika.
Cooking onions in the tears. That is what film is to me.
මේක සිස්ටම් එකේ අවුලක් මචං. කලකාර දේශපාලනීකරණය. ඔක්කොම විකිනේ.
Chopping meat to the rhythm of a heartbreak.
මේ නිර්මාණ කරන අය ඔක්කොම පටලගෙන තියෙන්නේ.
Everything's gonna be right. Things may look a little creepy, Mommy is stealing the songs of the mermaids to cook fish. Mommy, hard to keep. No. ඕක දැක්කොත් දැම්මම මට ගෙදරින්
කරන්න යන්නේ.
මට දැනගන්න ඕනත් නැහැ. මොකද ටික ඕක දැනගෙන මගේ ඔළුව නිකන් අප්සෙට් කරගන්නේ. මේ තියෙන විදිහට ගන්න පොඩි. ආතල්ලේ ඔළුව දිනවනේ ගන්න තිබුණා හොඳයි.
කියන හරකතා ඔක්කොම අස්සක් නෙවෙයි. අපි මිනිස් ඉගෙන ගන්න වෙනස්. ඒ කියන්නේ මිනිසුන් කතා පාලනය කරන්නත් ඒගොල්ලෝ සුපිරිය පාලනය කරන්නත්.
අයිය මොන හරි කතා කරමුද?
කතා කරමු.
පස්සේ ඉවරලා. පස්සේ.
ඉවරලා මේක පෙන්වුවට පස්සේ කතා කරමු.
අනේ මට තේරෙන්නේ නැහැ කොහෙන් අතර වේද කියලා.
ෆිල්ම් එකේ නිලිය ඒකෙන් පැනලා ගිහිල්ලා නම් ස්ක්‍රිප්ට් රයිටර් තාම කතාව හොයනවා. හදාගන්න බෑ.
What's that?
How long has it been?
18 years.
I took it more seriously. I had written little things before.
KB's.
Baby got plan.
A baby.
No!
I have orders to obey. I'm speaking of particular situations.
She thinks it's safe.
Everyone already knows a past sentence.
The story is she took a sleeping pill. Change. The kitchens change. Men's masks change. But men don't change. Bhumika.
Cooking onions in the tears. That is what film is to me.
මේක සිස්ටම් එකේ අවුලක් මචං. කලාකාරයෝ ඔක්කොම දේශපාලනීකරණය කරනවා. ඔක්කොම විකිනිද.
Chopping meat to the rhythm of a heartbreak.
මට යා වෙනුවෙන් අදන්න. මට යා වෙනුවෙන් අදන්න තාමත් තිබ්බේ නැහැ. මේගොල්ලෝ මේ ඇත්ත ජීවිතේ මේ රංගපෑමයි නිර්මාණ කරන අය ඔක්කොම පටලගෙන තියෙන්නේ.
Everything's gonna be alright. Things may look a little crazy, pretty baby, but I promise mama's gonna be alright. Stealing the songs of the mermaids to cook fish. Film is breaking a heart to kill love and running away to get rid of the pain if it makes you forget you're alive. මට ට්‍රේලර් එක කපන්න ඕන ෆිල්ම් එකේ කතාව කියන්නේ නැතුව. අපු ඕක දාන්න එපා. ඕකේ මම ඉන්නවා. ඕක දැක්කොත් දැම්මම මට ගෙදරින්
ප්‍රකෘති
මොකද දන්නේ මෙයා කරන්න යන්නේ?
මට දැනගන්න ඕනක් නැහැ. මොකද කියලා ඕක දැනගෙන මගේ උඩුවනේ කන අප්සෙට් කරගන්නේ. මේ තියෙන විදිහට ගන්න පොඩි. ආතල්ලේ ඔළුව දිනවනේ ගන්න දිනනවා.
කියන කතාව ඔක්කොම ඇත්තක් නෙවෙයි. අපි මිනිස් විතර දේවල් වෙනස්. කියන්නේ මිනිස්සුන්ගේ කතාව පාලනය කරන්නත් ඒගොල්ලෝ සුපිරියක් පාලනය කරනවා.
අයිය මොන හරි කතා කරමුද?
කතා කරමු.
පස්සේ ඉවරලා.
ඉවරලා මේක පෙන්වුවාට පස්සේ කතා කරමු.
කියලා.
ෆිල්ම් එකේ නිලිය ඒකෙන් පැනලා ගිහිල්ලා නම් ස්ක්‍රිප්ට් රයිටර් තාම කතාව හොයනවා නම් ඔඩියන්ස් එක ෆිල්ම් එක දිහා තාම බලාගෙන ඉන්නවා නම් කොහොමද අපි මේ ෆිල්ම් එක ඉවර කරන්නේ? ගිහිල්ලා හදාගන්න බෑ.
For the unintended delay, but good afternoon and welcome to the launch of Meraki Sutra by Padmaseri. A special welcome goes out to veteran film personality Mrs. Sumitra Piris for gracing this occasion. She recently had the singular honor of receiving the title, the Order of the Rising Sun, Gold and Silver Rays from the Emperor of Japan. As Sri Lankans, we are indeed very proud of her and her work. It is no doubt a tremendous encouragement to a young filmmaker and artist like Jayashika on this occasion. Jayashika published her first collection of poetry, Sleepless Nights, back in 2010. Her second collection, Paper, published in 2014, was awarded the Best Poetry Collection in English at the State Literary Awards. Poetry comes naturally to her. And while she claims poetry is everywhere and that we are all poets, she has a remarkable gift to capture all the poetry around us and put it to words. With her third collection, Meraki Sutra, she adds another dimension to her poetic efforts. Being a filmmaker, she adds visual poetry to her words through photographs, illustration, and even from time in planes, I want to experiment with words on a page and explore. This time, I took it a bit further, and I tried to break away from the convention that poetry could only exist as words on a page. This book is an effort to show that poetry could exist anywhere, and not only on pages of books. So those are Jayashika's words. And to reflect on Meraki Sutra and perhaps comment on the visual aspects of Jayashika's work, we have our first speaker, Dr. Visakesa Chandrasekaram. Dr. Visakesa Chandrasekaram is a filmmaker, a writer, a university lecturer, and an advocate of law. His debut film, Frangipani, made in 2014, looked at the conventional notions of gender and sexuality in Sri Lanka, while gaining both local and international acclaim. His second film, Pangshu, captures the tears of a mother who is struggling to come to terms with her son's untimely death. It is an emotional film that juxtaposes justice and forgiveness together and touches the most sensitive chords in a person's heart. Pangshu is screening as we speak. It's currently screening, so I would like to invite each and every one of you, if you haven't witnessed it, to also watch the film at your earliest opportunity. Dr. Visakesa is also a writer who writes in both Sinhala and English. His debut play script, prize, Sahanam Madavia, won National Literature Tigers Dr. Visakesa Chandrasekaram to share his views.
Thank you, Vinsa. So, yes, I'm a filmmaker, but at the same time I wear a number of hats, and I probably won't speak too much about the visual aspect of that, because I thought the other content is much more interesting in this collection of work. So, thank you very much for this invitation, and it is wonderful to be with you all today. I'm not here to review or present a critique of this book, applying techniques and theories of literary criticism. I'm rather here to share my personal thoughts based on my personal tastes. Meraki Sutra is a collection of prose and visuals. We read and collection of material. We experience contradictions because the voice of the author may shift between various characters who are different from one another. But when I read and view the pieces of this collection, I saw singularity in the voice in almost all the pieces. You could gradually build a profile of the person to whom this voice belongs. Who is this person? Is it the author, or somewhat detached personality which is considered his mind, so does as our author? About which woman we are talking today? Meraki is a Greek term apparently used as the persona of the voice presented in this collection. However, without distinguishing the author and taking rather safe route, I would like to use the term woman here to describe the persona of the person who owns the voice we hear in these pieces. When I skimmed through the initial pages, I sensed strong feminist underpinnings. Then later I realized the collection is more self-centered and self-indulging rather than being feminist. One of the reasons I say so, because a feminist would not only grasp the element of unfairness towards women, but also presents their discourse within a political framework pointing to fairness or solution. And this I have not noticed in Meraki Sutra, which by virtue of its title is about something of yourself, rather than something of a collective. In fact, in Silent Tears, in page 126, the woman disclaims, "I am not feminist." That this woman, persona, is outside her self-focused boundaries to cast a glance on the world outside. I see three key themes in this collection, and one is about this empathetic view towards the poor and helpless life outside the personal space of this tentatively called poverty portraits. Faces of people not so lucky and stricken by poverty one way or the other. Here we notice a sense of altruism from the woman's side to spare a thought for these destitute spaces. The images captured by the woman's camera makes this empathy real for the reader, whether or not such empathy is genuine. The second prominent theme I have noticed in this collection is the woman's bitterness towards the man's love. For the time being, I would call this theme the displeased lover. The displeased lover is sometimes a victim. For example, in Slow Death, in page 89, we hear the laments of an abandoned woman next to an image of a living woman lying in a coffin. And in Heart Poem, in page 83, conversely, the woman is the accused, who is unapologetically raving about her act of breaking heart of a man. The third and the strongest theme in this collection is an assault on sexism. And the woman here creates a caricature of misogyny by presenting a violent and irrational man. For example, in Coconut, page 12, a brutal imagery is created about a man. She says, "I cracked a coconut for you in the temple, you cracked a coconut on my head." Later we see a twist of author's imagination in lying on the dark, dirty floor. We see words, "You have sucked every drop of milk from my breast." With these narratives, a caricature of misogyny, a term I borrow from author Kathy Young, who wrote an article to Washington Post, is created, depicting a selfish, violent, and a rogue man. However, I do not think this caricature of misogyny is created by crossing the so-called. Our book, in fact, admits guilt in some occasions, and two, we all are eyewitnesses of South Asia's misogyny covered by the robes of religion and traditions. There is another common theme in this collection, which permeates through all other themes. That is the thread of hopelessness, which keeps these pieces tied together. For example, in Ophelia's dream, in page 6, we see an image of a woman lying in the shallow water, not deep enough to submerge, but perhaps good enough to freeze her and to make her immobile. Although I think the prose narratives didn't add much compliments to the power of this image, I think the original painting of Ophelia by John Everett and subsequent reference to the film Melancholia certainly strengthens this theme of hopelessness by presenting the image of stonified women about to be drowned. The peak of this theme is of hopelessness probably can be seen in the poem carrying the image of the tunnel in page 35, which starts with the words, "Feel like I have been walking inside." Although this is a very common narrative of hopelessness or depression in some cases, I see the merits of juxtapositioning these narratives with the rest. Truly, our woman persona is stuck and only can keep walking forward in the dark tunnel without a promise of light. Now I would move to the piece Vesantara in page 4. Have a look if you have the book with you. I think it is because of its connection to singing Ophelia about to be drowned in the river, but also due to the crafty reinvention to give away not himself, but also his children and eventually his own life to fulfill his paramita, or the boon to achieve the high spiritual status, Buddha status. The woman in our poem, the wife of the king, wants us to see the philanthropic king as a selfish man who exchanges his woman for a boon to achieve a status only a man can achieve. The visuals positioned within this poem indeed sarcastically presents the king in white color and the wolf to whom he is about to donate his wife in black. Nevertheless, there is love. Now I come to my favorite piece, and possibly the shortest piece in the book. In Flowers on My Sari in page 28. Have a look again. A fascinating piece. In Flowers on My Sari, we know there is a woman wearing a sari, and if she is the same woman who was asked to do so, this woman is painstakingly trying to forget the images of the man which haunts her memory. She says, counting the flowers on my sari does not make me stop thinking of you. She is about to be fallen in love, and most likely she will, regardless of all resentments and bitter memories she possesses about other men. You can fall in love again. In fact, it is okay to fall in love again. It is inevitable to fall in love again. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Dr. Visakesa, for your warm and generous words.
We love people to fill our voids. We postpone the unfinished, thinking, after all, tomorrow is another day. And I will do it tomorrow. But when tomorrow comes, I only feel like peeling 10 more oranges without getting out of bed. Peeling oranges. We do things out of habit. We love people to fill our voids.
ඔයා දන්නවද ඔයා මෙතනට ආවයි කියලා?
I feel as if life is one big long take. And whatever mistakes we might make in this long take, we have to live with the consequences of those mistakes. In life, we wait. Wait hoping that something will happen to end the mundaneness of our lives. We wait for a cut in the long take called life to take place. But sometimes the take just goes on and on, as we cannot go for cuts whenever we choose. We wait for the climax scene to end, to see what will happen next, to see whether the hero and the heroine will ultimately unite and live happily ever after.
Tamara, ඔයා දන්නවද අද දවස මොකක්ද කියලා?
We wait for a person in that scene to speak, to break the unbearable silence, for something to happen, just as we wait in life sometimes. To the feeling of hoping for the arrival of their beloved, who has left him, her, for another. It is similar to the feeling of waiting for a phone call that never comes.
Maria. Muhammad.
Similar to the feeling of waiting for a letter that never arrives. Similar to the feeling of waiting at an airport during a transit. Similar to that feeling of waiting at a train station in the night, when you know you have missed your train till another train arrives. Similar to the feeling of waiting alone at a bus stop on a cold winter day, shivering, and your teeth chattering against each other, while watching from a distance how the bus is traveling at the pace of a snail.
ඔයා දන්නවද මම මේ ඉන්නේ කොහෙද කියලා?
චූටි කාලේ ඉස්කෝලේ යනකොට ඉතින් හැමදාම මං ඉන්ටර්වල් එකේදී තනියම පන්තියට වෙලා හිටියා. කැමතුනේ නෑ මං තනියම පන්තියට වෙලා ඉන්නවට. මට හැමදාම බල කරා යාළුවොත් එක්ක එළියට ගිහලා සෙල්ලම් කරන්න කියලා. එක දවසක් එයා මට කිව්වා මං එළියට ගිහින් සෙල්ලම් කරේ නැත්තම් මගේ අම්මට කියනවා කියලා. මං ඊට පස්සේ සෙල්ලම් පිටරයට ගිහින් දුවන්න පටන් ගත්තා. ඊට පස්සේ යාළුවෙක් මාව අල්ලන්න එනවා කියලා හිතාගෙන මං ඈතට දිව්වා. කවුරු හරි මාව එලවගෙන එනවා කියලා හිතාගෙන මං දිව්වා. මං දිව්වා. මං දුවනවා.
And this is art for me. Some of the ideas regarding waiting are inspired by Roland Barthes.
Meraki is a word that modern Greeks often use to describe what happens when you leave a piece of yourself, your soul, your creativity or love in your work. When you love doing something, anything, so much that you put something of yourself in it. For an author like Jayashika, who perceives everything, every person, every situation, everywhere, as a potent muse for poetic craft, Meraki, I imagine, is a very soulful and profound experience. Exploring her writing enmeshed with the visual tapestry, both in the publication and shared here on screen, gives us a vivid picture of herself that she leaves in her work. Our next speaker, Mr. Senakaberatna, is among other things an economist, playwright, novelist, photographer, digital modern artist, and contemporary dance choreographer. He is one of Sri Lanka's leading playwrights, having won both the Gratian Prize and the State Literary Award. He has written 2 novels. The first was published in London in 2002 and the second in New York in 2017. His black and white photos and digital modern artworks have been exhibited in Sri Lanka as well as the south of France. He is also a part-time book reviewer and a fine arts critic. My warm invitation is to Mr. Senakaberatna to share his reflections.
Ladies and gentlemen, honored guests, the title of my talk is Pushing Boundaries with Meraki Sutra. To review a book of poetry in a few minutes is no easy task. Actually, this book, Meraki Sutra, Between Tears and Salt, by Daisha, by saying this the presentation is stylish, elegant, and highly artistic. It is clearly a product of excellent teamwork. The 5-person team involved in the preparation of this book comprised the author, the layout designer, the photographer, the illustrator, and the copy editor. They all deserve to be mentioned because what they have collectively produced is a work of art. That it is embellished with bright colors, unusual designs and visuals, and haunting images. I'm going to stick my neck out by saying this is the first time a Sri Lankan writer in English product that stirs the imagination and fills the mind with vivid symbolic imagery. Broadly speaking, a poem consists of words arranged in a distinctive style so as to create meaning, sound, and rhythm. If for a moment one could view poetry as music, then this book, Meraki Sutra, is not a solo piece, but an orchestral composition, a symphony of colors, emotions, and images. The poet, Jashika Padmasri, not only has the courage to innovate, she also possesses the intellectual and artistic ability to try something unconventional and pull it off with aplomb. I have no hesitation in saying eminent individual brilliance with teamwork. This ambitious literary project, if I may call it that, is something new for Sri Lanka. It is an eye-opener in the sense that Jayashika gives new meaning and interpretation to the design and presentation of a book of poetry. The author obviously has a keen eye for aesthetics, which is what has enabled her to produce something out of the ordinary. It is this lofty aesthetic dimension that caught my eye when I first started going through the book a few days ago. I have nothing but praise for any book that knocks my socks off. Well, this one did, so much so that I read it several times over. This wonderful book, with its distinct postmodern flavor, is full of contextual and emotional nuances. And each time I started reading it afresh, I spotted something I had failed to notice earlier. Let's return to the front cover for a moment. The title of the book is Meraki Sutra. Meraki is a Greek word and it means the essence of yourself. If you do something with Meraki, it means putting the essence of yourself into your work. For example, if you sing with Meraki, you are putting the essence of yourself into your work. It has various shades of meaning, including discourse. So we have a title that combines a Sanskrit word with a Greek word. East meets West. We can guess the author, who pursued her higher studies in England, is influenced by Eastern as well as Western philosophies. Now, let's look at the artwork on the front cover. The dominant color is green, which suggests the author is a nature lover. In the foreground, we see a mermaid with a sunflower in her wavy, windswept hair, gazing forlornly at the setting sun in the distance, which is also in the form of a sunflower. The sunflower is a symbol of life, energy, and vitality. The mermaid, on the other hand, is a lonely, mythical creature who is free to roam the high seas and is not constrained by the strictures of society. Perhaps she symbolizes freedom. But freedom from what? To answer this question, you have to read the book. The ending comes as a complete surprise. The cover, by and large, gives a clue about what to expect in the poems, which are deeply philosophical and utterly unconventional. Unconventional in the sense that they are a mix of blank verse, quotations, one-liners, and prose fragments. As for that celebrated four-letter word denoting copulation, which continues to irk conservative readers, you will find it popping up here and there in the book. In fact, there's one whole poem devoted to it. Some of the poems flirt with expressionism, while others convey a hint of Zen Buddhism. For example, the poem, "My sanity is insanity in others' eyes," is pure expressionism. While the poem, "The silence said too many things, but you didn't understand even one of them," is classic Zen Buddhism. The poems by and large cover a range of feelings, emotions, and experiences, and like the artwork on the front cover, are rich in symbolic imagery. Some are deceptively simple, while others are whimsical or abstract. The photos serve a very important purpose in that they imbue many of the people poems with a local flavor. Sadness is a recurring theme in the book. Perhaps it relates to the personal experiences of the author as well as the cultural experiences by Rashika, entitled "The Sad Story of Hope." Even after the rites ended, I still didn't lose hope. But now, hope does not linger in my eyes anymore. Thank you.
Waiting for. He was expecting a traveler, traveling in another bus, who forgot to turn up at the bus stop that day. As my bus drove away, I wondered how long he would wait before he made up his mind to walk away.
Ladies and gentlemen and my friends, we are about to experience something intensely beautiful. An extra dimension or element is about to be added to Jayashika's visual poetry, heightening our experience of Meraki's Sutra. Thank you to Mr. Senakabiratna for his wonderful words. He wished for perhaps music to be added to Jayashika's poetry, and he is about to have his wishes granted. Combining poetry and visual with music, we have with us the esteemed musician, Mr. Navika Guruge, who has set to music one of Jayashika's poems. Mr. Guruge grew up with the guitar. And music, he touches a person's heart directly and confronts their soul. His musical chords mirror the sentiments we try to hide deep inside our hearts and speaks volumes of unutterable emotions. Navika's music has traveled worldwide, and today he is one of the most acclaimed musicians in Sri Lanka. He has composed music for many films and theatre productions, including the musical score composed for Jayashika's feature film, Talking with the Wind. And now, here's Mr. Navika Guruge with his soulful rendition.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here before Madame Sumitra and other distinguished guests. And Magi Sahodari, when I first read your first poem, Vesanta, that spoke to me in a way which reminded me of the old Vesantara Jataka Kaviya. sometimes we take history as history, but sometimes historians, or rather, I would call them artists, the folklore artists, they send some political messages hidden in all these student. I figured out that there's something poem that seems to be a very innocent kind of an expression. By these two held phrase, it says, Gombanda Teluata Kiriravatto, which I believe deconstructs the whole concept of enlightenment. So, I wouldn't be talking much about it. I'd rather get back to my corner over there. I'm going to play a piece of music, kind of a derivative of the original Vesantra Jataka score. And it has two movements. The first movement depicts the agony of the two Italian Krishna. Different story. Thank you. So when I read Jayashika's first poem, it was a metaphor for me, and so this will be another interpretation of her poetry on Vesantra Jataka poetry. So it's kind of an interpretation of an interpretation. So that's all about it. Thank you very much. It's a string trio accompanied by a guitar, a 12 string. There'll be two violins and one viola playing in three different parts.
No, I don't know about you, my friends, but I got goosebumps just listening to that. Once more, a round of applause to Maestro Navika Guruge and his team. While those wistful chords linger in our hearts and minds, allow me to introduce our next speaker. Dr. Athulasiri Samarkorn is a senior lecturer attached to the Department of Social Studies at the Open University of Sri Lanka. He has obtained his MPhil and PhD from the Jawaharlal Nehru University in New Delhi, India. He is a board member of the BCIS, the Bandaranaike Center for International Studies, and was formerly a member of the Executive Committee of FUTA and OUTA unions. He is ready to address the audience.
Ladies and gentlemen, the title of my speech is Meraki Sutra, a search for poetry outside the language. From the ancient to the modern times, poetry as an art has been defined variously. For example, the ancients viewed poetry as an instance of dark saying, the enigma, a riddle. But unlike a riddle, the enigma's darkness is not something that can be illuminated or eliminated by reason or interpretation. Plato in Republic equates poetry with anarchy, because poetry is not something that can give itself reason, but is exemplary of all that is incoherent with the just and rational order of things. Aristotle reconceptualized poetry both as a species of cognition or mimesis and as a kind of consecutive reasoning. The justification of poetry became the traditional task of allegory, which is a philosophical way of reading non-philosophical texts by construing them as to make them coherent with prevailing true beliefs. In the 19th century, French poet Mallarmé reconfigured the idea of poetry to match with the modern times, remarking that one does not make poetry with ideas but with words. Malame's idea of poetry finds its opposite in Romanticism, which saw poetry as experience or subjectivity. In the modern times, thus poetry loses its romantic soul and becomes something material, materiality of written language. In that sense, the constituent elements of poetry become only the letters of the alphabet and also the white space of the printed page, the fold in its middle, and the typographical arrangements that letters inscribe. However, Maurice Blanchot, a French philosopher, rereading Malame's conceptualization of poetry, tells that poetic language destroys the world to make it reborn in a state of meaning, of signified values with creative form, becomes the pure power of questioning and transfiguration. In his words, the ability to dismiss the world. So poetic language in modern times is a discursive event that interrupts the logical or dialectical movement of significations and thereby opens up a dimension of exteriority or worldlessness, world free of thing. I am sure you must be tired of listening to this debate of defining poetry, which I draw from many literature. But let me point out one more idea on poetry, this time by Jean-Paul Sartre, who opposes Malame's idea and tells the poet is outside the language, who refuses to utilize it and finds herself in the reverse side of language. Considering the above discussion, we have now seen that poetry's association is contested throughout the history of its evolution. Now we have a quite solid theory to approach Jayashika's Meraki Sutra, which does not privilege verbal signs of language but questions the very meaning of language itself. That is why she redefines the materiality of written words by several artworks, pictures, postcards, paintings, visual storytelling, and prose and non-traditional lines. In Paper Planes, her first award-winning poetry, she experimented with form of poetry. And in Sleepless Night, she wrote long stanzas, giving priority to written language. Yet in Meraki Sutra, she becomes more philosophical, both material and existential, and finds that materiality of language as words only is a misconception. She is very much conscious of what she tells us in the back cover blurb, that poetry is not confined to language and it is everywhere. She finds poetry in almost everything around us and radically, I would say, we all are poets. Sounding a Gramscian idea in politics that every individual is an intellectual. However, she does not add, unlike Gramsci, who tells everyone does not play the role of intellectual, that everyone cannot play the role of poet. Jayashika has identified her role as a poet but does not want to deviate from ordinary people like you and me. So she is an organic poet, and Meraki Sutra, I would say, marks a transition in her poetic career. Thank you very much.
The little treasures. The rolled beady in the backdrop of her bent black hands. shines in the light as little treasures. I earn my day's meal by selling these little toy guns to toy soldiers, the woman said, as she folded the last beedi for the day.
Thank you to Dr. Abdulsiri Samrakon for his words earlier. Our final speaker this evening is Mrs. Flavia Hettiarachchi. Mrs. Hettiarachchi is someone who is very close and special to Jayashika, I am told. She was Jayashika's English literature teacher during her A-levels, and Jayashika has known her for almost half her life. What started as a student-teacher relationship has now transformed into a closer bond that is akin to a family-like relationship. And today, as someone who has closely watched Jayashika's literary and creative adventures blossom and giving us an insight to both the artist and the art, it is indeed a pleasure to invite Mrs. Flavia Hettiarachchi to speak a few words about Jayashika's latest book.
As someone who has been very close to Jayashika, I would like to speak a few words about her and her book, Merathi Kusum. I have known Jayashika for more than half a lifetime. To say that I have known her perhaps is a little exaggeration, because Jayashika never lets anyone know her in the true sense of the word. What I have known of her then is very simple. A pretty girl who walks into the class just at the right time and leaves the class just as it was over. Unless the teacher pushes her, she will dare not write. But when she does, it was marvelous. I mean, what she wrote, the substance, but not the handwriting. Sorry, Jayashika, I'm only being frank. Jayashika had her education at 2 schools. She doesn't want me to mention the school, but only state that the first is the school she loved, and the second is the one she respected, as it allowed her to mix up with children from all walks of life. Inspiration for her. After completing her advanced work successfully, she left to join Leeds Trinity University in England. She obtained a BA Honours degree in English in 2011. She specialized in creative writing, ending up with a second-class upper division pass. She studied, after returning to Sri Lanka, she pursued her first love, writing. Jayashika won the State Literary Award in 2015 for her collection of poetry published in 2014. The book of poetry titled Take a Place. With regard to poetry for Jayashika, this is the little conversation that we had. Poetry for her is in the mind. It depends on the way we look at life. There is poetry in the wind, in the rustling leaves, in the raindrop, and even the hooting of an owl, in a flower that blooms and in a flower that fades. In this collection, your short and crispy expressions of casual observations have helped you to highlight the ultimate reality of life. Jayashika's book, titled Merathi Sutra, according to her, which is a Greek word, is a piece where she leaves her soul behind. It's very much like leaving a part of her soul. And of the poems that interested me most is All the Things She Didn't Say, which is in page 59. Okay. The poem deals with all what she didn't say. Definitely, this appeals to the imagination of the reader. Probably volumes of thought. Jessica has been able to come out of a comfortable cocoon she had created for herself and has used expressions to highlight a depressing reality. Words may be uttered or muttered, but the last line of the poem, a tear hanging by a memory, offers us a liberal sprinkling of everyday reality. The line even forces us to go down memory lane. Her next poem, which I liked very much, was On the Fence. This is, the poem goes this way: in the wilderness, the open road called and invited me to come. All I had to do was step through the gate, but instead I found myself lingering near the gate undecided. There is a liberal exposure of reality here and everyday life. Her experiences remind one of Robert Shaw's choice, but in Jessica's case, this poem doesn't. The difference is that the persona will linger near the gate undecided. She uses the confessional mode here. We find here more than a touch of imagination. Her next poem, which I like very much, is in page 136, which is, okay, actually there's no title to it. There's a shoe. Okay? It reads this way: I lost my slipper a long time ago, but the springs never brought my lost slipper back. This is a poem without a title, and the poetry is in the shoe. There is much food for thought. What is inscribed in the shoe, Jessica has a sense of, indicates that Jessica has a sense of humor. Definitely, she didn't lose her slipper, and so she never expected a prince of the past to bring it back. The idea is novel, and the effect is surprising. With regard to her other poem, which is Ophelia's Dream, which is in page 6, I'll read that part. I'm not reading the whole thing, I'm just taking a little extract which is interesting and tells something about her. The truth is that Jane Austen is a criminal for polluting the mindset of young girls by building up this perfect character image of a Mr. Darcy in a world where only Wickham exists. She makes reference to the male character in Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. Her accusation of Jane Austen for creating a non-existent perfect man is witty, humorous, accusatory, and for polluting the mindset of young girls. Jessica wants to indoctrinate Jane Austen. So she continues next this way. Therefore, we, the jury, declare and sentence Jane Austen to be locked inside a little room full of frogs in a high cold tower, and to read all the books of D.H. Lawrence and Jackie Collins, and to ban Austen from creating such characters as Mr. Darcy never again, so that she can write another novel saying this is not a book. With a fine sense of ironic humor, Jessica wants Jane Austen to be punished for her misdirection of young female minds. Then, with regard to, in most of your other poetry, there's a strong sting on the treatment of women. You seem to feel that you should raise a voice against unfairness and betrayal of women. Jessica, your writing is refreshing. Your sense of you seem to question the validity of conventional ideas. You peek into the world of love, betrayal, disgust, and rejection. You belong to the new world of poetry writing, a totally new approach to life. I would like to quote just a couple of lines from Thomas Gray's poem, The Elegy in a Country Churchyard. The last two lines of one verse. Full many a flower is born to blush unseen and waste his sweetness in the desert air. I want you to come out, Jayashika, and continue with your good work. Let the world see your talent. Don't hide them. Congratulations, Jayashika. I wish you all the best. Thank you.
A mother's love. You asked me to put the thread into the needle. I said later and returned to YouTube on my phone. After a while, I heard you saying, "Here is your dress. It is mended."
Thank you to Mrs. Flavia Hettiarachi for her wonderful and encouraging words. Ladies and gentlemen, my friends, we are nearly at the conclusion of this event, but before we do, on Jayashika's behalf, we would like to thank everyone gathered here today. Madam Sumitra Peiris, thank you for your gracious presence. Thank you to our guest speakers, Dr. Visakesa Chandrasekaran, Mr. Sena Kavirajna, Dr. Avidasiri Samrakon, and Mrs. Flavia Hettiarachi. Some of you took on the task of speaking at very short notice, and we are extremely grateful for your kindness. A massive thank you to Mr. Navika Gurugate for his wonderful musical performance. You have our deep appreciation. We would also like to thank Mr. Lal Visanayaka and Ms. Nanda Jaikodi of the Turning Point Studio for helping us with the poetry recordings shared here at the launch. This book is a collaboration of many people. We would like to take the opportunity to thank the team behind Meraki Sutra, to Dhanush Ratna for his beautiful illustration, to Madhuni Alhakon for her wonderful photographs. You can see her running around, continuously supporting the work, to Mei for copy editing the book, to Mas Rahim for doing the layout of the book, and to Yashika Dayanapiti. Thanks to 9 publishers. This book thanks also extended to the Sri Lanka Book Publishers Association for their continued support. And finally, thank you all, our audience, for your presence. And with that, we conclude the launch event this evening, and there are some refreshments arranged. Please help yourselves. Thank you once again. I hope you all have a blessed evening. Thank you.